get started. This first item is minutes of public meetings.
All right, I'll kick it off, but then I'll return it over to the clerk to go through meeting minutes, best practices and what have you. So just as a bit of history on the subject, we started talking about this in earnest last year in about February at a work session about what the requirements are for minutes and how they should be structured, what we should be including, those sorts of things. And then we went through the year, and as many of you know, we went through a process of redoing our council packet process with new software, as well as the digital videography process. At that time, we added, we contracted for them to include transcription, kind of closed captioning type services, so that anybody who wanted verbatim records of what was said could find those kind of things there. So that's kind of where we started. This is the same slide that I showed back last February when we first started talking about this. Just as a reminder, so how are minutes taken for council meetings? We do have a contractor who actually prepares the minutes for us based off video and audio recordings that we provide them. The draft minutes are sent to the city clerk, who by statute and by code has the onus of keeping the minutes and ensuring that they're complete. Draft minutes are provided to the packet for council review, and then ultimately the minutes are yours as a council, so you approve them usually at the beginning of the following meeting, both for the regular council meeting and then the version that we do for the work session. One of the things to stress and why there's been some changes is that minutes are a summary. That's very important, a summary of activities and actions that the city government has taken. They are not meant to be court recordings. We're not a court, so they are not meant to be a verbatim transcription of everything that was said by who, by when, what have you. So what the minutes must include, according to the statute and best practices, is members of the council that were present, which we do, the members who make or second motions as we go through the agenda, which we do, any roll call votes on the motions, which we do, subject matter proposed resolutions or ordinances that are included, and whether those resolutions or ordinances are defeated or adopted, and then again votes of those who vote. That's what we're supposed to keep track of, and that's what we do keep track of in the minutes. So the latest version of the minutes that you've been seeing since the beginning of the year, since the new system came online, was to bring us in compliance with that. Over the years, we have had our minutes get a little bit out of control, where we were swung almost to verbatim transcription of what was said in the council. And again, this is an attempt to bring it back to what it's supposed to be. I would say I know there's some folks, particularly sometimes elected officials, who want to look at the minutes as a means for gathering political fodder, either to show people what they said in a meeting, or to try to say bring up what their opponents said in a meeting, and that's not necessarily what the official meeting board do. They're there to record the decisions of the city government. So that was my 2 cents. Christine, if you could add, please.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I think you did a great job introducing the minutes and the history behind it. I'm really proud of what they look like now, and it sounds like before I came on board, Orono invested a good amount of money into the services that we have now to provide those additional areas of transparency, like the video and transcription services. So I think that's really nice to have for people that want to kind of zone in on the details, and then our main purpose on documenting business decisions, we're doing that part well now. So I'm really proud of what the minutes look like now. Some residents might have noticed the change, and I'm happy to help them navigate to questions specifically? That any of you heard out in the field or at public or community?
I know that, I guess one thing I know that may have prompted this subject is, we've been having a lot of folks who come up in public comment and make statements and what have you. And I think there might be some misconception on the part of the public that whatever they say is being recorded and entered into the minutes, and it's not. That's not required. It's not best practice, so it's not what we do. What's added for the minutes is who it was, where they live, and that they spoke.
And Adam, this is the same for not only with our council meetings, but planning committee.
Yeah, it should be. Yep.
So this is, when we talk about this is for everyone.
Yep.
Perfect, thank you.
Yeah, and I will note that for planning commission especially, but also city council, there is the public hearing section that would require a little bit more detail because we need that public input before we make a decision. So,
And it's still on video too, and it's still on video.
And I think in her thing too is to note there's a big difference between a public hearing and public comments. Public comments are not a public hearing; they're just public comments.
yeah,
They're
yeah.
the opportunity for residents to address you as their elected officials. It's not.
And I think a lot of the concern comes from people wanting their voices heard. And we talk about different ways to engage. What are other opportunities you could provide or we should promote?
Well, I think when the public is trying to engage with us on particular issues, the best way for the public to engage on a particular issue is in writing. We see that most prominently in planning and zoning type actions as they come through. So, the staff will often encourage people who want to provide comments, neighbors, things like that, is to add those in writing, because then we can add those to the council, to the actual packet. Because, the other thing to remember here is that what becomes the public record is the minutes and the packet, so that you can see, anybody can see exactly what the resolution was in its detail, that was approved or not approved, and the rest of that packet has all that backup information. So any written comments that were provided by interested parties would be part of the particular planning action, would be in that planning packet.
And when did they have to get them in to be part of the back? Because, like, I received some emails here from residents.
We, so as far as getting them into the packet that you all see on Friday, we usually need those by Thursday for the following Monday. What you will see us do is, as those things come in, whoever the action officer is on staff will be forwarding them to the clerk, who will add them into the digital record. As a matter of practice, what we try to do is anything, for instance, if we received anything today, we would also print that out and try to put it at your spots on the dais, because it hasn't been in there. But before the packet is then, put in Laserfeed, which is our official repository, then any of those written comments that were received in the process would be included in there.
So a member of the public who wanted to speak if we had a Monday meeting on an item that maybe was added to the agenda, would not necessarily, their letter or whatnot, if they published that or sent it over the weekend, late Friday afternoon or Monday, would not be included in the record with the packet. Or it would be in the record, just not with the packet.
Well, so normally what we're doing is, we're collecting comments for things that are part of public hearings. So like, when I go back to the planning and zoning type process, so those are being entered in at the time of the public hearing, which is normally at the planning commission.
Okay. So for
Generally, if we do get any written comments on other council package, yes, we can include those just in the same way. We don't normally, but it could be done that way.
I'm just wondering, and I don't know, I don't want to speak for anyone, but I know that somebody had brought this to a public comment. The minutes had come up, I don't know when it was in the last month or two. And I imagine that part of the issue, I don't know how many years, and Christine probably wouldn't know either being newer, but over the course of time, have our minutes changed from what I consider what we have now to more detail and less back and forth a few times? So it's under the discretion of council in order that we formulate these in a way that's palatable, that covers us in the ways that we need to be for the record, but that into consideration what residents are giving feedback about. My perspective, not knowing the history, is that this was a very big change. They were very detailed at the end of 2023, or likely for a long time before that. And then it switched with the new software at the beginning of the year. And I think part of the issue may be that there was not, to my knowledge anyway, for people maybe who've been used to reading minutes or records in that fashion, there was no notice given, we haven't discussed it in meetings, there hasn't been an explanation given that I'm aware of. Maybe there was.
There was, but
Okay,
clearly I gathered from several of your faces when it was brought up, that you didn't remember that, but yeah, we had, I mean, Ron sat right over there and talked about implementation of the new software, the transcription device, and how we were gonna reduce our minutes, and that's part of, when we justified that procurement, that was part of the justification, was, well, it sounds like people want some kind of transcript of our meetings, so we will go out and seek a vendor that can provide that, and so we have that. What we don't do is duplicate it, we don't do it twice.
And I could do better, at, communicating how to find things, we're constantly looking for ways and, hearing, public input on how we can make it easier to find what we're looking for. So, step by step, we're not quite 100% implemented with our new software, video website, but we are working to make it as easy.
right. That's important, because I think what was someplace that people were going and being able to see either their commenting for accuracy or somebody else's with name and address, and at least some general description of what was discussed is now a name and an address, and that's a big change. And it's also, what I'd say is, I know there's what we need to do for the record and the accuracy, but there's also, I didn't look through every single, there were at least 6 or 7 examples from other states in general, of what people are doing. Some cities reflect maybe our size, some don't. But there is some discretion there, and I'd say with regarding public comment, there are city councils I know around here, Reza and Medina, that do include at least a sentence or two on what that resident was addressing. And I think that can be helpful, only because then people have context for understanding if there's an issue being discussed that maybe is something they're interested in or whatnot. Without the context, that's a different situation.
I think you get a little bit tough on that one, because now you're putting the context on her to figure out what that is, and then you could have people that argue that wasn't the context. Then we might have disagreements on who's thinking of what that context is, so I think if we just follow the rules as we need to do it, best practices, and obviously we haven't been doing it, so, and that's our job, is to, when staff brings things to us, which they did back in the fall. Actually, I think at your request, wasn't what your request that we wanted it, I think it was because we wanted to get the stuff where you could, at the bottom of the, we wanted, it all started with kind of getting closed caption to provide more opportunity to read it while the video was going. And then it kind of mushroomed from there, say, well, let's just get the thing put together completely right. And I think that's what we procured then, and with our boss over here, getting us all organized, with best practices, I think that's just, we should be doing what that is correctly, and not going overboard, putting you in a position too, of trying to figure out what people are thinking or saying.
I think one of the things also to just point out, if you haven't been there in the last week, Christine spent a lot of time on the landing page for public meetings. So it was a little bit discombobulated as they brought the new system in and how you would access it. And she's been able to, we kept trying to get the coders to code it, but that was very difficult. So Christine has been able to kind of reconfigure the page a little bit. It's still not probably 100% where we want to be, but at least now you can, anybody going there can go, when they go to city meetings, there's links for each of the different kinds of records that we have. So that if you want to go to the actual repository of historical records and see minutes and meeting agendas, there's a link that takes you to our public-facing Laserfish files, which are our official records. You can link to the live video if you wanted to watch the meeting tonight, and then also you can see, if I don't know if any of you tried it, but you could click the little clicks to see the agenda or the packet, as it was published on Friday. There's still a little bit of difference in the videos because of the different vendors. So some of the older ones are in a little different section on that page than the stuff from the last year, but Our hope is that we can just get all the videos in one archive, but I don't know. I don't know if the coders will figure that out, but Christine's done a lot to at least get it all on the same page.
Yeah, we want all the information to be accessible easily, so we're still working on it, but yeah, I'm open to feedback and, public input.
Me personally, when I've been going through records for the last handful of years, trying to find information, I think bullet points are much easier to get through, and then you can click and watch that part of the video. I also think even written word isn't the same as communicated, so watching things live, you can see people's emotion behind it too, and maybe get more information that way, so I personally like that, where I'm able to do that.
But still a lot of work to do, and,
Yeah.
But yeah, I really am proud of how the minutes look, and I think of it kind of like a bank statement that we get at the end of the month that doesn't have all of our, receipts or coupons and things like that. It's just a summary of the transactions, and then, we keep our own personal file of the details.
Yeah, I appreciate that, and I'm always a fan of best practices, for sure, and you're the expert in that, and, I think, again, this issue, I've certainly brought up minutes when I was first on council for different reasons, but this most recent question was brought up by a resident, during a public comment, and I don't recall all of the requests on it, but it was something essentially about the big change, and again, only saying now name and address, and I think if members of council, myself included, not remembered every single detail of Ron's presentation on this new software, it was a very big change, and I would argue that maybe we have more work to do on communicating best practices and why we're making these changes, why they are being implemented, and what residents can do to ensure that their concerns are being included in the record.
That's a good, we can take that for the communications committee, maybe add on and add that, an agenda item for that, how we can better communicate that.
Yeah.
Because we have had issues with, continual issues with residents voicing that their concerns are not being heard, and it's not on one issue. So my concern is that we take seriously whatever these voices are that are showing up and spending time, reading through meetings to get public comment, that they're not, kind of either rushed aside or just this is best practices without, it's not just your job, it's our job as a council to explain these things and to ensure that it's being communicated not once, but over time, because it takes a lot to communicate big changes like that effectively, so that people understand them. It's also, again, something that there's a lot of discretion there with different councils, because the different councils do give, I wouldn't say context and trying to put words in somebody's mouth, but spoke on what road closure. There are ways to provide a basic sense of fact without getting into who said what. It's what was the subject that was addressed. That would be my only, again, and I don't know what the resident was thinking, but there are big changes, and if it's possible to do that, given that people spend time coming here and give comment, that would be my only suggestion. I think that
So
helps.
if we get, some, help people understand, where and when to send their written correspondence on that link page, I think that's a good start. We have unlike many cities around us, our planning commission and our city council are all video recorded, and so that takes a big burden. If people want to get, the really detailed information, that tool's available, and so organizing it, thanks for doing that on your own, and working through, if our coders couldn't do it, good job finding a solution to it. And, that's the thing with any website, you're constantly learning and tweaking it, and this is one we brought visibility to, so let's help people understand how they find the information. That's exactly what you've already been doing.
Yeah.
So, so good job on that front, and as a video, I watch our videos regularly, and I really appreciate the linking between the item and the time on the video, because you can click on one and then it goes to the right time, and so I think probably the complaint is really coming from maybe not understanding how to get the information that they want to see. Sounds like we've been compliant, and, you know, that's very important, so we've achieved that. And let's see what we can do to make it a little more user-friendly for people that want to get a deep dive in and know where to go to get it. And if they want written comments, to make sure they know where that, you know, should be sent and to whom that should be sent to. You know, 'cause that's the other thing. So we can handle that right on our webpage. And if you get inquiries, we can steer people to self-serve too, instead of using staff time to, you know, teach people. If we have a really good format online, it, you know, relieves staff of that. So sounds like we're already doing that, so.
One other comment on the website, as long as we're talking about that, I know I've gotten questions on how to navigate to certain things, and I'm not always the best person to ask, I think you've gotten questions as well. I don't know how easy something like this would be to do, or how much time it would take, but I think it can be possible to sometimes, you know, when we're the ones navigating a system that maybe we're more familiar with, to not look at it with the eyes of somebody who's seeing it for the first time and who's not as familiar with it, who's trying to access this information, and in the effort to not produce more barriers in that way. I don't know if you've ever had experience doing this or at other cities, or if we've done it here, but inviting, you know, some segment of the population or residents who are interested to come in real time, look at those individuals trying to navigate something. How do you find this on the website, or that? How do you find it? Because it's unlike anything else if you're trying to do it yourself, to be able to see it through somebody else's perspective and to be able to learn what's tripping people up potentially. I know there are probably people that pay focus groups to do that in a standardized way, but it's something to consider, because I think we don't necessarily have a novice or, you know, a fresh perspective when we're looking for information.
You know, maybe along that line, because I don't know how you anticipate the lowest level of capacity in your website towards that, but there might be an opportunity then to put a tab there for people to leave comments on the website's usage, you know, usage comments, so someone can click on a tab and say, you know, I'm really struggling to find this, and then when we review it on a periodic level, then we can, you know, take that feedback in, and maybe there's things we can do, maybe that person, you know, expectations aren't realistic either, but let's take the information in, see what we can tweak it, and it's just a simple click, and someone can take a look at that.
And I would just reassure you that we do that, we haven't done like a formal focus group or something like that. But what we do is, you know, our staff, particularly our administrative staff who is engaging with the public all the time, we are constantly taking those comments, because if we're answering a lot of phone calls about how do I find X, then we look at, well, we maybe need to have a tab on the main website that takes people to X. You know, so we've re-geared some of our stuff like that. You know, this effort that Christine's been doing just on the meeting website is, you know, kind of based on that, and some feedback of, well, we have a hard time figuring out where the Swagit connection is versus the Granicus connection versus Laserfish, and all these softwares that the user doesn't care about, they just want to get some information.
Right, yeah, we do get.
And in all fairness, in the last, you know, 6 to 8 years that I've been using this website regularly, this thing has improved tremendously. So the navigation around the site from what it was 6 years ago is way better. So,
Maybe yours is improving.
well,
That's a site
it's
improvement.
changed, you know, it's, the landing page is the big one for most people. It's like, if you go to landing page and you can navigate from there, the code and all that is so complicated, it's hard to navigate. We have staff for that.
We've got a form,
Yeah.
we've got a button.
Because we all know what it's like to be on a website that's easy to navigate versus not, and even when there's lots of different departments and different information, it still can be organized or easy for people to navigate.
I think to the point too of people being here for a long time and don't feel like they're being heard. You know, we've implemented coffee with the mayor once a week, anybody to come in. I know Maria has talked many times that she's put herself out there, as I do all the time, is that anybody can call me, glad to do coffee or whatever anytime, and doesn't seem to get a whole lot of chirps out there. You know, there's not a lot of people call up, so there's a lot of different ways besides coming and making a point at the city council, public comment.
Right.
Many ways to reach out.
That's absolutely true. And we want to ensure that there aren't barriers in any of these, however people give people different ways of wanting to connect, for sure.
All right, any other stuff on that? Otherwise, we got roads.
Well, good job, Christina.
Thank you.
Nice.
Thanks.
All right. So, pavement, so we're talking about the 2024 pavement, really gearing towards talking about what we're going to do in 2025. So the agenda that I have today is discuss and get some feedback approval on which roads that we will do in 2025, discuss pavement preventive maintenance, and then also touch on gain some council guidance or plant some seeds for council guidance on pavement funding for 2025 and beyond.
And honestly, we kind of go through this every year.
Mhm.
We kind of usually wait till spring because the snow is gone, the ice is gone. We didn't have a whole lot of it this year, but it still brings us to the same point of, I get a bunch of calls during the year, and Ferndale is definitely one of them. Spring Hill was definitely one of them. Dog Road is one of them. Heritage, getting beat up by all the trucks kind of down at the north end of Heritage. But I think it's behooves us if we can go and look at, drive some of these roads. I know we've got our $1 million in our pavement management budget. I know we've got some discussion here about increases, but I'd leave that for the budget discussions at this point, and instead of having those good discussions right now. But I think on our roads that we're approving today, and I can't remember what item that is, but I think it says in there that we have about $339,000 left over from 2023 that we're approving for the roads in 2024, or the 2024 roads, we got about 300, so we got about $1.3 million. So we might be able to add a couple small ones here. The good news is we've got a bunch of money to plan, and I would say by the first meeting in May, it'd be good if everybody can go drive roads, compare notes, see which ones are the worst or the best of the bad ones, and because we always need to take care of the worst first if we can, and if we can sneak up the small roads in there, like example, like Dahl is a really small one, and we've been talking about that, but that's linked in with like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 other roads, but if we can squeeze in some small ones, that I know we've done when we do a couple of big ones, and we can add some 50s and 80s in there, because it doesn't do anything to the budget group 4 roads versus grouping 3 roads. It's not going to make any difference. So that would just be my task is Adam obviously put together what he thinks is the best right now, and I know Ferndale is definitely one of those for sure. I know we talked about Kelly Lydiard Circle and Carmen Road. That's been having some real issues over there over the years, so that'd be a good time to knock that one out. So it doesn't leave us with a gazillion dollars, but we should look at some of these others and start, keeping a list of what we think is the worst and what we can squeeze in if possible.
What, is that something typically staff or public works is doing, or is it council that typically gives feedback on just, because it's not as easy to see based on what we're driving over, what is
Sure.
the real need?
So, yeah, so if I could kind of.
That would be helpful, yeah.
So our strategy over the years has been to maximize the pavement life via preventive maintenance. We do that, to answer your question, through regular inspections and assessments. So I, as the city engineer, go out every year and inspect 20% of our city roads. I use what's called the Pavement Condition Index, which was developed by the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers many years ago, and as a way to rate pavements. And so when you see in the council item, as well as in some of the slides, when it says PCI number, that's what I'm giving you there. It's a scoring mechanism based on distresses you see on the surface of the pavement to try to figure out what's going on under the pavement as well. It's a 1 to 100 scale, so if it was 100, that's a brand new road. If it's 1, you're probably driving through a jungle or grass somewhere because there's nothing there anymore. So everything in between. Some things that I do is I put my things together, and that's why you notice some of these things grouped, is I will try to group neighborhoods together where possible. The example in the packet of Kelly. Well, Kelly is in definite need of some major reconstruction. Lydiard Circle, Lydiard Avenue, Lydiard Circle, and Carmen, not as bad, but are in need of some level of maintenance, probably not reconstruction, but maybe a mill and overlay. And what I like to do is go into a neighborhood once, take care of all the pavement needs, so that I'm not coming back and forth. That tends to make the neighborhoods very angry. And I don't like when they're angry at me.
And
We've
Adam, doesn't that tend to be more economical because you've got all the machines and everything in the same
It can be. It drives down the what the contractors call the mobilization cost. So at the beginning of any bid that we get, the first line is usually a big one in their bid is mobilization. So the fewer times they have to take their big equipment in and out or move, load it up on a truck and move it somewhere else, usually the lower that number is. We do patching where appropriate. And when I say patching, that's not popping. That's like, sometimes we'll have a big length road, maybe 90% of the road's in okay condition, but there's just like 50 feet of just really bad pavement. Well, we'll do some kind of full width patch to maybe hold that section of the road over until we do something for the whole road. And then we've had over the years kind of a worst first for reconstruction. So those are the worst roads. Trying to get the reconstructions done first. Just as for your information, in case you don't know how a road is built, from the bottom up, you have in a typical road, we have the subgrade, which is the dirt underneath the road. We build on top of that. We put, you'll sometimes hear it called class 5. That's just the technical term for the type of aggregate, but rock, it's compacted rock, same kind of rock you might see on a dirt road. And then on top of that are 2 layers of asphalt. Normally, for most of our projects that we're doing, we're going after, in the preventive maintenance or minor maintenance type activities, we're going after either this first 1.5 inches of asphalt or maybe a little bit into this base course. You hear sometimes we talk about mill and overlay projects. That's what those projects are doing. When we start talking about a reclamation project or a reconstruction project, then we're definitely getting into doing some things with this aggregate below the pavement, and in many cases getting into the subgrade. You'll hear the engineers when they come and talk about subgrade corrections. These are the kind of things that we do below the surface. Example of that in last year's project, which was Fox Street, we did a bunch of subgrade corrections on that road, kind of in that piece that went through the swamp there. Where we had to go deeper to get rid of some materials that were unsuitable to carry the load of the road.
Does the aggregate level keep the road out of mortar intrusion?
The aggregate will allow water to drain.
Okay. So filter properly.
Yes, and so yeah, a lot of times what we'll be doing as well, it's not shown on here, but sometimes between the subgrade and the aggregate, we'll put what you'll see crews rolling out, looks like a fabric, like a landscaping mat almost. And a lot of times what we're trying to do there is create a separation between the subgrade and the aggregate so that the aggregate continues to drain properly, so that you don't get a whole bunch of, we're getting into details, but a whole bunch of fines, from organic materials getting in and clogging up.
And it holds the base of the road too. I mean, because you're not going to make it all bituminous, because that would just.
Right.
And this is just a typical, you alter, and we, for particularly on a road reconstruction, we'll actually go out and get, we'll take samples, corings down into the subgrade, and get reports from the geotechnical engineers on, hey, you need to add some extra asphalt or extra base or whatever the case may be. The other thing I like to point out on this slide is just is the maintenance cycle of roads, and this goes back to the preventive maintenance. And what this slide is kind of showing that pavement condition index from brand new road at 100, kind of over time. If you don't do anything to that pavement, if we don't go and try to do some things to keep, in essence, keep the water out of the asphalt, your road's going to degrade kind of on this red line, and so different roads are a little bit different, but at the 25-30 year point, the road's done. It's all the way to zero. What we shoot for is to do a series of maintenance activities during the life of the road so that we can take that road and stretch it out and get something, 40, 60, 70 years out of a road. That doesn't, and some of these are more expensive. In this little chart, this is showing some sealing activities or these little peaks, and then we get into here, you see these bigger improvements. That's going with a mill and overlay, which is some of the things that we'll and then so on throughout the life of the road. And it varies a little bit where you move through those depending on the conditions. This faded to pink, and I'm not sure why. It might be the original, but it should be blue water. And so it doesn't show well here. What I was trying to show you on this map is just the results pictorially of going out to look at the conditions of the asphalt. And so you can kind of still see the green. Those are those pavements that are an 80 or better. So those are pretty decent roads. But that doesn't mean they don't have cracks in them, or they might have a pothole or a patch or something, but they're in decent condition. The ones in yellow are between 60 and 80. These are the ones that we're really looking at probably doing something with that top part of the pavement. That's where we're talking usually a mill and overlay. We might do a reclamation on it depending on what else we're doing in the neighborhood and things like that. But generally, that's kind of what we're looking at doing. And then the oranges, which aren't showing up as well on here, but as an example, Kelly down here, those are much lower PCI. Those are the ones where we know we can't just do something with the asphalt. We have to get into the site grade to do some work, and it can vary as to how much it is. And those general classifications and those general kind of ideas of overall treatment methods for the roads are what then drive my planning level estimates that I do for the capital improvement plan and then for this process. So that's where I get these pavement costs, is looking at what kind of activity we think we need to do to those roads, and I use just kind of a generic square foot or square yard basis based off of the previous few years of contracts that we've done. We refine those numbers for those who've been around as we go through the design and we get more detail. But that's
You were
kind of
wrong on Fox.
I was wrong on Fox. It was much cheaper.
Oh, that's good, right?
Yeah.
I like to put that down to good engineering and
Well, that's the
coming up
reason
with
why
these
we got
reasons.
extra dollars now, so.
That was big help.
And also, I hope to always be wrong on these numbers because I try to be conservative on them. I'm much happier to come tell you that the road's cheaper than I thought it was.
Well, that's why it's nice too to come up with like, here's the absolute definite roads we gotta do, and there might be some flex, and that's where you might add 1 or 2 or 3 as alternates, that they'll bid as alternates, so if the prices work out, you keep them in, or you can take them out as alternates if you need to as well, so.
And we've done that a lot in the past, added some alternates.
What
so-
an improvement over the last 6 years, with that pavement management, this, remember when this map looked a lot different? I mean, we're making some.
The colors changed a lot.
Yeah.
A lot of green on there.
We used to have a lot of red. I will say that some of these greens are in need of some preventive maintenance. So this map doesn't really touch that. There are some things we could be doing and should be doing for those pavements to get them to last longer. But and then on this slide is the same as in your packet. I know the mayor was mentioning. This is kind of between what I'm recommending for next year, which is based off of these previous meetings and looking at the pavements as well as the 26 and beyond. An argument could be easily made to say, oh, well, let's do Spring Hill instead of Kelly, or let's do, what are those, I fell off here, thought I had them on there, Heritage, I just.
No, I can't.
I thought I had it on here.
Heritage is on here.
It's in my packet, it's somehow not on the slide.
It's at 56 right now.
410,000,
Yeah.
56, yeah.
Adam, I have a question. I had a citizen a few months back talk to me about their street and their road, Bones Point.
Mhm.
I went out and drove it. I have no idea what is a green, a yellow, an orange, or red by mine.
Mhm.
Is there a visual that you use, or we could say, hey, this is what this is a green looking quadrant,
Other than what I gave you here, no, I mean,
Yeah.
when I go to do the inspection, I'm out there doing geeky things like measuring cracks and
Okay,
counting cracks and determining whether, there's the horizontal crack or it's a joint crack or
And it's
whether
not just experience, just over time, just looking at roads, when you start paying attention to them, you start knowing.
so to
what's
the
going
naked eye though, an
Yeah.
untrained person,
Mhm.
I just keep saying, go talk to Adam. because
Yeah,
I'll
no,
never-
and we do.
Okay.
We get resident calls all year long, especially this time of year, because this time of year is great as the roads start to thaw. We also get, the cracks really become apparent because the water starts coming up through them and you can really see them really easy. The one thing that, sometimes the residents don't, is sometimes we'll have a pavement, when you look at the top of it, there's cracks everywhere, but they're little cracks. But if you drive the pavement, it's relatively smooth and flat.
Okay.
And we can have another road where there's there's only a few cracks, but you can, there's big chunks of asphalt missing, or you can really start to tell that you're getting ruts where the tires go, or you're getting kind of
Even you, Maria, could.
Even I
a
could.
quarter inch.
I'm like, sure, I'll check it out, and then I drove out there, and I was like, I mean, I
Well,
see some cracks, for
Well,
sure.
then we have things like Heritage where, a huge chunk of that is a brand new road.
Mhm.
And so when you transition from that existing one to
And
the
that's-
brand new one, people,
Really noticed.
Heritage seems,
So that was my second question. What if a road kept falling in the red? They kept getting a lot of our budget. Has that ever happened where it's like, well,
I don't know if, I've only been here 10 years, so I haven't been through that cycle. When back then, when we didn't have a road budget, we did have a lot of roads. Fox Street was one, it was a definite red. I mean, we had
Huge potholes.
huge potholes with clay coming up through the pavement. It was terrible. So we have had those, and those are some of our more expensive roads. And that's where you will see these costs, when we start talking about the PCIs of 50 in the 50s, those are expensive roads to repair. It's not about just, grinding off some asphalt, and put some new asphalt. That's why they cost so much. It's because
Yeah, dig down a little bit more
and how long is a road typically down when we do road work?
it depends on the length, normally, and it depends on what we're doing to it. If we're not touching utilities, it's actually can be fairly quick, 3 or 4 weeks.
I'm glad you quantified.
Yeah.
Because I was like 3 hours we talking? No.
Yeah.
No.
And some of the stuff that we've been doing over time too, is we gotta think about, some of these roads, historically, we did any curb and gutter. And we've started doing curb and gutter a number of years ago, because we need to manage the water a little bit better, because it's just goes in people's yards, and like my yards is flooded all the time, so we've done a lot more of that. And that takes a little bit more, I guess, customer engagement that are on the roads, because they'll know the roads better for kind of what's going on. And then with the engineers, just lasering and seeing what it is, they can direct and manage the water. It's a little more expensive to do that, but I'd rather do it right the first time. And so we always have some basement, so when we do the roads, we let the neighbors know, and we'll typically have an open house, especially if it's a big road, they come in, so they can kind of, or when the engineers out there, they'll know, and they can tell them about, here's the issues, and here's why, and here's what's going on. So when we do the road, hopefully it's a good fix for the long term versus going, oh God, we should have done that, and that's a little late.
And I have a question, what's the thought process was behind 2026, Myrtlewood and Hackberry Hill, in the 70s being not addressed until 2026? Is there a reason?
It's 2026 and beyond. Yeah, so these are some,
Well, the higher number is better.
Oh, higher numbers.
Higher numbers is
I thought it
better.
was like
Yeah.
flipped.
100 is a perfectly new road.
You said that earlier. Thank you.
So some of these, like I have Myrtlewood and Hackberry, that like Myrtlewood's an example of one where we need to do a surface treatment.
Yeah.
Hackberry, I have on there particularly, you may remember, we've talked about the Hackberry Park and doing a project, and so I've started to pay real attention to that. More so, not so much for their pavement, but stormwater work that needs to be done in that neighborhood. And so, that's an example of, if we do the Hackberry Park project, it would make a lot of sense that we would do those 3 roads as well, because they border that park, and all the stormwater is tied together. So,
And with the total estimate for 2025, it's like 1.1 essentially, and you're seeing in a budget area here that we've got, what was it?
Well, there's $1 million in the budget.
$1 million in
We
the
have
budget.
339 left over from last year. So $1.3 million, basically.
Yep, so we have, in 2024, we have $1 million coming in on the levy. And then there's a little bit of balance from the previous years, as the mayor mentioned.
So it sounds like there's some discretion. I mean, you've already assessed these, the ones that you're recommending, but beyond that, there's some discretion about whether you could add other ones that make sense or whatnot, if they're in the general area.
Yep, we can do that. We've done, and we can do, sometimes we do small things as well. Last year, as an example, we had Fox Street, which was our big project, and then when we got bids in, it was way lower than we thought. So we added Glendale Drive in at the time, right after work. I came back from council, said, can I do Glendale?
Right.
Because it's, I can't remember the exact numbers, but I think it was $40,000.
Pretty cheap.
And you're taking into consideration the folks from those neighborhoods are reaching out, are they saying we have problems? Is that part of this process, even if informally or?
So we get calls, particularly in the spring. We have on occasion, not very often, we'll also get a petition from a neighborhood. I think your neighborhood petitioned us, way back when. Parkwood, one of the roads we're doing this year, they petitioned us maybe 3 or 4 years ago as a
I
neighborhood.
mean, it makes us pay attention maybe more, people will drive it more, but we're still trying to get, worst to best, and starting with the worst, but where we have discretion, where we've got a couple $100,000, you can see, well, Garden Court and Wildhorse, it's only 230, then you got Spruce, Linden, Dahl, you might be able to do 2 or 3 of those instead of doing all 5, so we've got some flexibility from that standpoint to see, can we squeeze a few more in with extra dollars as alternates, because if it comes in from $1.1 million and it's only 9, now you got another couple $100,000, right? So sometimes we just don't know, or if it goes the other, or it could go the other way, that's okay, we're just going to do the other route.
Pavement costs go up.
One other thing I'd like to just point out on this slide too is, especially those who haven't been around, we haven't done a municipal state aid road in a while because we didn't have any money in our municipal state aid account. So that has been regenerated or back up to positive. We have a positive balance now.
What is our balance now?
It is projected for the end of this year to be, I think, 600,000.
Oh, really?
So, and just a real quick, I know we're running out of time. Municipal state aid roads, for those of you who don't know, we have 9 miles of our roads that we are allowed to declare state aid roads. When you think of state aid roads, think of roads that are they're collector roads, so they're roads that are kind of just below like a county road as far as their function. So, and what we're allowed to do with municipal state aid roads is we get funding from the state. So everybody pays gas tax in the state of Minnesota. A large portion of that gas tax is then sent back to municipalities. You have to have over 10,000 over 5,000 in your municipality, and some other things, and you get a certain amount of money for state aid roads.
I think that's great, now that we got that up, we can start planning on those too, so if we're that close, we should probably get that in the budget.
And so I have Brown. I would love to get on Brown.
I would love to get on Brown.
Driven it, it's terrible. And so that is what I would be proposing for our municipal state aid dollars.
Right, any other questions for the gallery going here? We're good there?
No, my only comment is I think you're the expert in this area, and unless there's a neighborhood that's really wanting a council member to come out and drive their neighborhood, I don't know that I have much to add, because again, visually it doesn't tell you a lot, so I don't know if driving roadways is gonna be a good use of
I see what you have there.
time. I think it sounds like you covered it, Adam.
That's
Adam,
what I
your
was concerned,
numbers-
I'm like, I need
Your
to drive.
numbers and everything there
Yeah,
are
I think
extremely accurate for the way the city is. So,
So it's like I say, if we can by the first meeting in May, have all of the things organized, so we can just make the decision to start, because once we agree on the roads, then we got to get an engineering bid from our engineer.
Do you want me to come back in a work session format?
Yeah, let's just do a work session. Yeah.
thank you, Pat.
It's all right to be less.
Brother, you go down to Florida? I got a life too, sometimes I got work to do and I got other stuff going on in my life. Yeah. I've been down there, I've been up here, I got projects to do.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe I should talk to you
Do you
about
have a
putting.
farm in Florida?
Oh, yeah.
I thought so, yeah.
Yeah, on Pine Island, Hurricane Ian went right over us.
Pine Island.
By Cape Coral, Fort Myers.
Oh, cool.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, no, I had solar power on, I got down there 6 days later, and I had to take a boat out to the island because the road was washed out.
So you're out there where the damn bridge washed away?
Yeah, well, the north side, the bridge washed away, and then there's another road out there, and that's it through Matlacha. Anyways, I got out there 6 days later. I got a ride down to my house. I went in my house and opened my fridge, and my beer was still cold.
Oh, bullshit.
No, because I got solar power and battery bank. It was all up and running the whole time. So that's the power of solar. Excuse me.
I'm sorry.
No
I
problem.
just got so we had a little smaller place down an hour north of the Tampa airport, right?
Okay, sure.
First time I've ever been down there. We got a little bit newer place, a little bit bigger.
Yep.
And first time I've ever been down there where I could stay for 10 days. Otherwise,
Yep.
the hell with it. So did you